Hey everybody, it's LavenderTowne, and today I'm continuing my series where I turn random things into cute girls, and today we are doing the amendments from the Bill of Rights. So first off, we're going to start, of course, with the First Amendment. This is probably one of the most well-known amendments that are in the American Bill of Rights. The exact text goes like this. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So for this first character design, I thought I would make her a protester because, of course, this whole amendment is really about having the freedom to petition your government, to put pressure on them to make changes, because of course the government is here to help the people, not the other way around. So it made a lot of sense for me to make her a protester. I also gave her a little notebook to hold to represent the press. I thought that was really important because obviously without the press we don't know what's going on. Not everyone can have an eyewitness account of every event that happens in our country, so in order for us to have an educated public, we must protect the press. If you'd like to see an example of a violation of the First Amendment by intimidation of the press, here are a couple clips from the last few days. These are all a violation of the First Amendment and are extremely wrong and make these policemen criminals. So anyway, I wanted her to have a rainbow shirt on also to honor the Stonewall riots because, it's Pride Month. It's hard to remember that sometimes, but it's one of the most important, things for LGBT history is the Stonewall riots, and it's only thanks to the people who were there and fighting really hard for some of the most marginalized people in the whole country that we even have Pride. So I thought I would throw that in there as well. So this is actually my favorite of all the amendments, if you can have a favorite. I just think it helps protect all of our other rights, and I think that every country should have something like this that protects its citizens' right to speak their mind and protest and basically make sure that the government is taking care of them. Next up is the Second Amendment. Now, this is another very famous one. Probably even non-Americans know about this one because you hear about it a lot in our politics. And the exact wording of the Second Amendment goes like this. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So oftentimes when people refer to the Second Amendment, they only speak about the end part of the Second Amendment, but originally the Second Amendment was really developed out of fear of monarchy cropping back up in America. Obviously we were not super into kings, that's why we had a whole revolution about it. So we wanted to make sure that if our leader started acting like a dictator or a king, basically that people would be able to fight back with a well-regulated militia. It wasn't until 2008 in District of Columbia versus Heller that the court even ruled that the Second Amendment applied to individuals keeping it for their, the defense of their own private property, which is usually how the people think about the Second Amendment. But truthfully, the Second Amendment was originally sort of designed to protect us from the government becoming too powerful. It's just something interesting, I think, about that amendment and the different ways we've thought about it over the years. I thought that this character should be probably a more aggressive and firm-looking character, so I basically tried to dress her in clothes that look like she could be part of a movement or a militia, since that's what's written in the actual amendment, and generally I just wanted her to look really hardcore. I also gave her a gun from back in the day. It's roughly modeled off of the pistols that were available when this document was made, and I think she looks really cool. I like how she turned out. I just tried to give off the impression that she's trying to prevent something or stop something from happening, just because I see this as probably the most aggressive, defensive sort of amendment that we have. Now, the Third Amendment is probably one of the least popular ones, and honestly, I never thought in my lifetime that I would hear it becoming relevant. More on that later. But basically, the Third Amendment goes like this. No soldier shall, in a time of peace, be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in a time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. Basically, this amendment seemed really bizarre and wouldn't really be relevant anytime that we were not currently at war. So a lot of people have thought that the Third Amendment kind of doesn't need to be there. Who's worried about soldiers quartering in their homes? But it actually ended up being relevant just a few days ago. For some reason, 200 Utah National Guard troops were deployed into Washington, D.C. Against protesters, and basically the D.C. mayor did not want that to happen, and when her request to have them removed was ignored, she used this amendment to kick them out of the hotels they were staying in, because hotels are also private property, and they were paying for them with taxpayer money, so this amendment basically applied and had the Utah National Guard troops kicked out, essentially. So it's really strange. I genuinely never thought I would see this amendment be used at all. A lot of people are really unhappy about it, but it's certainly intriguing to see it in use. Then again, I guess I never expected military to be deployed against their own people. So this whole time has been very unprecedented, I would say. But basically, I designed this character to look like she's basically kicking you out of her house. I gave her these weird window pane glasses. I don't know if they really work, but basically I just wanted her to look like a bouncer who does not want you in her house. It's really, this amendment's strange because the First Amendment has 5 different rights that are involved in it, and then this one is just hey, soldiers can't stay in your house unless you want them to. It must have been a much bigger deal, back in the day when they were writing this, for them to think it should be the Third Amendment. But yeah, she turned out okay. I don't know, she's not my favorite. Next up is the Fourth Amendment. Now we're getting into amendments that I think most Americans don't know by heart. At least I didn't. I feel like we didn't learn a lot about our rights in school. I'm not sure if that was just my school, but basically the Fourth Amendment goes like this. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the person or things to be seized. So basically, this is the reason why cops need a warrant before they go through your stuff. That doesn't just include your house, though. If you are stopped by a police officer and they ask to see your phone, you can ask for a warrant, and you should. You should not give them anything without them having a warrant. And if they ask you to open up your glove box in your car, same thing. You don't have to do anything like that. Something that's really important to remember is just because they're an authority figure doesn't mean you have to do everything they say. We have a lot of rights in the Constitution that specifically say there are things that we can say no to. And also, if they're holding you somewhere, you can ask if you're being arrested, and if you're not being arrested or being detained, then you can just leave. It's kind of baked into us from a young age that if an authority figure is asking us to do something, we should just do it right away. But there are tons of things in our Constitution that basically say the opposite of that, to prevent people from getting unnecessarily harassed by police or by the government. I designed the whole character to look really standoffish and basically like she is saying no, because this whole amendment is really about saying no. No, you can't have my stuff. No, you can't look at my stuff. You can't come into my house without a really good reason to. It's fundamentally about being able to put down boundaries with people who are in power and authority figures. It's really important we maintain that power balance, because if we lose that, even if you have nothing to hide, it just makes the power too strong on one side, and it hurts normal civilians. Next up is the Fifth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment goes like this. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Now, if you're like me, you're thinking that was way too many rights to pack into one amendment, but I guess they were really going ham that time. Basically, what the Fifth Amendment is most famous for is pleading the Fifth and basically saying, I don't want to answer that question because it would incriminate me. But the Fifth Amendment covers a lot more than that. It's also basically saying that like the government can't just like take property from you without paying you. It's saying that you are entitled to the process of like the law before the government tries to take your stuff or your time or put you in prison or anything like that. You are entitled to being like in front of a jury and having your case heard out. Basically, this is why like we can't have vigilantes, operating off of a rumor. We need to make sure that every person gets a chance in court to argue for themselves and have their case heard, so that we're not putting the wrong people in prison. This is the amendment that basically states that we are not going to work in sort of like a vigilante capacity. We can't just have people getting killed in the streets because they might be a criminal, because then a lot of people, innocent people, would die. That's why when police bring people in, they are not considered criminals, they are considered suspects. So I designed this character with the idea of balance and justice. I had her holding the scales, kind of a cliche, but I thought it would work well. And generally I just wanted her to give off this impression that she would listen honestly to your case and try to be as fair as possible. And that's really what we want for our country, of course. So here are my character designs of the first 5 amendments of the Bill of Rights. I'm sure you all know why I wanted to make this video today, and it goes without saying, but I support the protesters and I support Black Lives Matter. And if you're a Black American and you're hearing this, please do not lose hope. And for everyone who's listening, I'm going to leave a bunch of links in the description of ways that you can help, not just things like donating a variety of different things, so please check that out if you're interested. Thank you for watching. Thank you to all of my patrons, including Bella Story, Best Kaiju, Lion, Clockwork Construct, Dark Jelly, Dr. Casket, Ilaria Louie, Emmy Bourgoin, Greer the Animator, Griffix, Hachiubi, Ice Cream Pal, Yvonne Rodriguez, JJJ, Joseph Copel, Lauren, Lebleblebla, Liliana Hammond, Marina Costa, Marie, Mr. Dr. Pants, Mia Lavali, Nicole Ludwak, Nicolette Queen, Nora Cornelison, Q Musgrove, Rainwater Pearls, Rebecca, Ruined Rain Crow, Some Mediocre Artist, Stephanie Vargas, The Artsy Moose, Tom David Johansson,